Welcome to this another jam-packed edition of Blunt Talk Quick Takes. I'm your host, Anthony Wright, coming to you from the scorching hot as hell confines of Atlantic City, New Jersey. Wherever you may be watching or listening, I thank you as always. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps the channel. You can check the Blunt Talk Sports podcast out not only here on YouTube, but on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, Patreon, Trovo, and as well as on Podbean. Happy to be here with you today on this January. Oh, excuse me, I said January. Damn. Look, I wish it was January, as hot as it's been. July 1st, 2025, with this jam-packed edition of NBA free agency opening period. We're going to cover the first 2 days of NBA free agency, the moves that were made, trades that were made, potential trades to be made, all of that in between. We're going to discuss that today. Before we do, though, we always want to make sure we give a shout-out to a couple of friends of the show. Definitely within the description box, the link of this live stream, you'll be able to check and see a link for StubHub and Viagogo. It's right now, it's football season in the U.S., FIFA, not NFL actually. So if you're looking to catch the World Cup in Philadelphia or some of the locations in LA or various places around the country, definitely check that out. Also, from my UK subscribers, if you're looking to catch Billie Eilish, some of the other latest and hottest acts right now touring, Coldplay as well, I definitely implore you to check within the description box of this video. And also for my Sony PlayStation advocates and subscribers out there, definitely check the link in the description box of this video. There will be a link for Sony PlayStation Direct to be in there as well. Sony PlayStation, more than a game. All right, guys. So in this episode, we're going to touch on a various amount of different things. First of all, SGA getting his Supermax extension with the Thunder. We're going to touch on the Milwaukee Bucks waiving Damian Lillard to open up cap space to get Miles Turner, which is fucking crazy. Never thought we want to see that happen. Denver trading Michael Porter Jr. and actually getting some help for Nikola Jokic on the bench by getting Cam Johnson. I'll touch on a couple of the moves they made. Also what the Nets did that I liked. Also, Jaren Jackson Jr. going to the Grizzlies. Love that move. And what does the messaging by Rich Paul mean as far as LeBron James and his future with the Los Angeles Lakers? I'll definitely get into that as well. So to get started, we leave no stone unturned. We'll definitely go towards the LeBron James story because that obviously seems to be like the biggest story right now on what potentially could happen with that. Going to his 23rd season, LeBron has elected to pick up his player extension or player option, which will basically allow him to make $52.6 million when it's this season. It's a massive amount of money. It must be fucking nice. With that being said, he's going to remain with the Lakers going through the season. This was all announced by his agent, Rich Paul, and confirmed by the Athletic. Not a shot. LeBron staying in LA, having Luka there, not really thrown off by that too much. I expected that much to happen. However, what I did not expect was the quote unquote messaging from Rich Paul put out there with LeBron's wishes. Right after the player option was exercised and picked up. And then for a while, it seemed like the Lakers hadn't even announced that they picked up the player option. So it was kind of crazy how things were playing out. But essentially, Rich Paul stated here, quote, LeBron knows the Lakers are building for the future, and he also knows he wants to compete for championships. He told this via The Athletic and ESPN. We understand the difficulty in winning now while preparing for the future. We do want to evaluate what's best for LeBron at this stage in his life and career. He wants to make every season he has left count, and the Lakers understand that and are supportive and what's best for him. Right there in a nutshell, just listening to that, that sounds like LeBron's like, I need y'all to make moves for now, and they're worried about making moves for later. He continues, we are very appreciative of the partnership that we've had for 8 years with Jeanie and Rob, talking about Jeanie Buss and Rob Pelinka, and consider the Lakers as critical part of his career. That's a nice way of saying, can we make some fucking moves? And if not, he's not going to be happy about this. I don't know what really move can be made. I evaluated the NBA trade machine in my time off yesterday. I watched various different things to try to see if it was even possible. It's not really even tangible. Maybe the goal is to get back to Cleveland. I mean, that's been a long-standing rumor with LeBron now for a while. Not sure if that's necessarily the case, but I know for a fact that has been the rumor. It seems like Los Angeles, though, is more focused on retaining Luka Doncic and building for the future, which I completely understand and respect because, again, LeBron, you're fucking 40 years old. I mean, We lose, if the Lakers, speaking third person, we lose Luka Doncic, we're fucked. There is no other option for the Lakers. So he is the future. They have to make sure that they go all in to retain him and to prove to him that they have a championship caliber roster outside of proving to you that they have a championship caliber roster. And ultimately, I mean, with him exercising this player option, it kind of handicapped them cap space wise on what they could do. So I'm not really sure there what the fuck he was, expecting. If they're going to pull a rabbit out their ass or what, or leave no stone unturned. But I was pretty sure they were already doing that. I don't know. It's kind of a weird situation, but LeBron and Rich Paul have definitely laid down the gauntlet for the Lakers and let it be known. So we shall see as everything else plays out. Along that line, though, with LeBron James, there were other guys that exercised their player options and extensions were signed or re-signed with their current teams. James Harden re-signed as well. Also, as Julius Randle, I believe it's 3 years, $100 million. So great to see that, and great to see those guys retain with their teams. James Harden was more or less circumstance. I mean, if he left, who the fuck was paying James Harden top dollar? I mean, James Harden, if you saw game 7 of last year, like you saw the litany of him in his career, there was no one paying him top dollar this year. So he did the right thing. And Julius Randle, I mean, some people have talked shit and said, well, if you clearly look at the Minnesota, New York Knicks trade, clearly Cat was a better option. Stat wise, I would agree with you. But if we're going to be honest, Randall loses confidence in the Western Conference Finals, that kind of changed the series too. If he doesn't lose confidence, maybe they play a little bit better. Maybe things change out. Maybe they don't lose in the fashion they lose, and maybe it's a tougher series for Oklahoma City. But nonetheless, all guys re-signing with their teams. It was all needed. Also, there was again, I got to give a shout out to this team right here because this was fucking major. I was gonna say New Jersey. I caught myself. The Brooklyn Nets making a major trade to really not only prove to the rest of us out there that they weren't bullshitting with their cap space and that they were actually trying to do something to fortify their roster. Major trade happens to secure Michael Porter Jr. Pulling up the details here for you. Now, this essentially was a Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson trade. Now, there was a caveat in this trade. In this trade was a 2032 unprotected first round pick that was executed or initiated pretty much to help this trade go through. And you got to give the Nuggets credit. They just turned a $40 million player into a $20 million player by securing Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson, less injury concerns, somebody that could definitely help fortify the bench for Denver. This is a win-win, in my opinion, for both teams. With Brooklyn, it's pretty damn simple. Michael Porter Jr. has been proclaimed and bragged about and spoken of as the chosen one for a long time now. And a lot of people have had this hype about him as if he was this great player that's been very exalted as, a guy that could fit in anywhere. Well, now he's going to get his turn. He's going to get his opportunity to run a team. We're going to see how great he really is. He did average 18 points last year, so it wasn't that, it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it was time for him to move on. He reached his ceiling in Denver. And honestly, I've been saying it on this show all damn season and going into the offseason. Denver had to make these type of moves to fortify their bench. Their bench was terrible. Their bench was the reason they got eliminated in the playoffs. They possibly could have beat Oklahoma City if they had better production from their bench. But that didn't happen. Things played out the way they were, and Oklahoma City is now the champions. Now, Denver was also active too because they were also able to get rid of Dario Saric in a trade with Sacramento. They wound up securing Jonas Valanciunas as well. So getting Valanciunas on top of getting Cam Johnson, definitely way better moves than what they made last offseason, fortifying their bench. First of all, Valanciunas, even though he averaged like 10 points last year, me being a Kings fan, I know he's a fighter, he's scrappy, he's a bulldog. There's a friendly rivalry and bond that he and Jokic have together. I think them being teammates will only make, iron sharpening iron, better, obviously, for lack of better cliches or terms. But I just, Denver and Brooklyn went into this free agency period like, we got to make some moves. We got to do something to really fortify both our rosters. I was completely disappointed with what Brooklyn did going into the draft. I honestly thought that they were going to spend some of that money on, or spend one of those draft assets on securing a veteran at the draft. They didn't do that. They spent all the fucking draft picks on point guards, which is egregious in itself. I touched on that in a separate video. We're not going to talk about all that today. However, the most important thing is too, Cam Johnson, who's a guy who I think has had some talent, excuse me, been a decent role player, a guy that was getting a lot of minutes in Brooklyn. Him being able to go to Denver and help out now and compete for possibly a championship team. Because let's be honest, Denver right now, they're still in the second round. So he's a guy that I think that could definitely help fortify the roster. Like I said, potential win-win for both teams, but I'd be remiss if I don't say this. Brooklyn needs Michael Porter Jr. to stay healthy. If Michael Porter Jr. does not stay healthy, then this is hands down a win for the Nuggets. I'm like I said, but I don't think the Nuggets are done. I think they got to get off Jamal Murray too. I think this is the off season where you got to make that move happen as well. Really prove to Jokic and that fan base that you're really trying to compete for championships and you're trying to compete in the Western Conference. So, especially with that young coach Adelman out there, I just think that'd be the best move, honestly. All right. Now we're going to touch on some trades that happened. A lot of trades this offseason. One that was kind of obscure, but I definitely wanted to touch on Lonzo Ball being traded to the Cavs for Isaac Okoro. Um, Inter-trade, interdivisional trade, which is very rare that happens, but it happens. Lonzo Ball is now going to the Cavaliers, Isaac Okoro to the Bulls. Okoro, decent player, okay, not really bad, but, just didn't really work out in the rotation wise with the Cavs. Lonzo Ball, obviously coming off the litany of injuries that he's had, uh, you know, kind of came back at the end of last year, showed some promise, showed he's got his legs under him a little bit. I think he's going to be even better this year. He's going to be healthier. So definitely need to see Lonzo Ball definitely, applying himself and definitely staying healthy and proving that he's still one of the top point guards and one of the most reliable point guards. And then he shot better too last year. He shot the three ball a lot better last year. So hopefully he could definitely stay healthy. This trade was kind of crazy, but I definitely wanted to go over this one. Utah Jazz trading Colin Sexton to the Hornets. Colin Sexton and a 2031 second round pick. They trading these 16 and 17-year-olds before they even got here. They already getting rid of them to the Hornets for Yusuf Nurkic. Now, which is crazy because this offseason has just been like teams going center crazy as far as trading and trying to apply and acquire centers. Yusuf Nurkic, the Suns were trying to get off him for damn near a year and a half. So trading Colin Sexton, who's been a good player for you, for Yusuf Nurkic, nah, I don't know. I don't know. Kind of crazy, kind of weird, but Utah trying to make some moves this year, trying to be competitive. You know, I get it, but I don't know if I'd have traded Colin Sexton and a 2031 second round pick for Nurkic. But getting Ace Bailey, getting some of the moves I think they're going to try to make down the line, it's probably a smart move to clear that guard spot now. But they got John Collins, they got forwards, they got Kessler Walker there. They got guys that I think they're going to have to make a lot of decisions on as far as getting rid of. So very interesting times for the Utah Jazz. Something I did not think I was going to be saying at all this offseason because they were as morbid as they were as a franchise like winning games. No one, I didn't even think they were going to play as a free agency, but new management, Danny Ainge and his son being in there, and Will Hardy, the coach that he is, they're really trying to, fortify this roster and get this team back to competency or relevancy, I should say, for lack of better words. Staying in the Western Conference, we're going to go to the Golden State Warriors, who tendered a qualifying offer to Jonathan Kuminga. This one to me is kind of funny because this is the Warriors trying to save face as much as possible. Jonathan Kuminga, with the way his contract is set up, the mid-level exception, it's kind of crazy. Don't worry, guys. I'll have within the description box the details of how all of that works because it's very convoluted. I may be here for half an hour trying to explain it to you. However, in very stark and blunt terms, if Jonathan Kuminga now being tendered the qualifying offer, he can get that mid-level exception, which 14.1 million doesn't sound like a lot of money. But when you think about a guy who hasn't really played like that, we're really basing this offseason his potential off of promise, because that's essentially what it is, potential. Even though he had decent numbers last year. I'm not trying to shit on him. But we haven't really seen an extended period of time of him having to be in that role, whether that being Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler and Draymond being there or Clay or however it worked out. He just didn't really get the minutes of the burn that he was expected to get. But now with that tender qualifying offer being on him, I do think some teams are going to definitely try to check and try to, kick the tires and see what they can offer him. But it's very simple. I mean, they give up those draft picks, they're going to get them. But the Warriors, I mean, not the draft picks, they give them that contract. The Warriors have an opportunity to match. So we'll see. But when you got half the league in negotiations for a guy, makes things very interesting. Going a step further, like I said, we'll touch on Jaren Jackson Jr. signing and finalizing a 5-year max extension with the Grizzlies. This was much expected. I was a little shocked myself because I kind of thought with the move of Desmond Bane being traded, they were going to possibly break up the whole roster. That wasn't what happened. They're going to run it, obviously, with Jaren Jackson Jr. But shout out to Triple J for getting his extension, 5 years, $240 million. And this is all via the Athletic. And it was a lot of, hemming and hawing and back and forth now for a year and a half now. I personally didn't think Triple J was going to get this deal from the Grizzlies. I thought they might going to try to shaft him or do some bullshit and trade him off to where he wouldn't be able to get the max. But this all worked out. I'm glad he got the max. He's definitely worth the money. He's been one of the best defensive players in the league. So, and honestly, guys like him are very hard to find, especially in the draft. I mean, you saw the Thompson twins, and look how long it took for guys like that to come along. So you definitely don't want to get rid of a Triple J. You definitely want to keep him in the rotation, especially with a John Morant, with the way that you plan on running offensive sets with their new head coach and the new philosophy and scheme that they're employing. It just makes the most sense. Staying with guys who wind up getting paid big, this one kind of like blew my top. Dorian Finney-Smith leaving the Lakers to go join the Rockets. The Rockets are loading the fuck up this offseason. On top of Finney-Smith already being a role player in LA and getting a lot of burn and potentially getting a very significant role in Los Angeles, he left for the money, which I couldn't blame him. Definitely get your money. And he signed a 4-year, $53 million contract, going to a rotation in Houston where he's definitely going to get some burn. This Houston team is definitely vying to try to win this Western Conference next year. I think that is without a doubt. You'd be a fool to think that they weren't. I mean, this is insane. Like the moves that they're making, the assets that they're acquiring, the way they're allocating the assets. You got to give the Houston Rockets a shitload of credit. They have gone for the gusto. Definitely want to touch on to another topic. This one I wanted to savor and wait for because I wanted to make sure I had some more information on it. Milwaukee Bucks waiving the injured Damian Lillard to make space for Miles Turner and steal him away from division rival Indiana Pacers. What a crazy fucking way to start the day off. I did not, like a lot of people, did not see this move coming. It makes sense though for both sides. First of all, if you're the Bucks, Dame's not playing this year. On top of the fact that he's not playing this year, what is the chances that you have to really compete in the East if Damian Lillard's out and you're signing a bunch of backups to help you on the bench? Guys that really help you in the rotation that can't really help you is really just a mute point. And Giannis is not going to stay around long term for that. He's going to have to be out of there by February. So you're not in a situation where you can afford to let Giannis Antetokounmpo go. If you're Milwaukee, I'm pretty sure none of the trade proposals or anything that they could garner that would be the magnitude of them drafting a guy like Giannis and him being a success and bringing a championship there. And I definitely feel like they think in the East, especially with what Indiana did and then losing to them 2 years in a row, that kind of stings. And I think for the pride and the ego, you think, you know what, fuck this. If we can get our roster right and stay healthy, we can win this shit again too. So I think there's a lot at play there. But again, that being the case, you got to give the Bucks general manager John Horst a shitload of credit. This was a very hard thing to do. I mean, understand the gravity of this. Damian Lillard's contract is going to be on the Milwaukee Bucks books for the next 5 years. They are going to be paying him while he is going to be playing elsewhere a year from now. So wherever he goes, it's not going to be about the money, but he's going to get paid still. Make no fucking mistake about that. Dame Dollar is going to get his dollar. But, damn. I mean, that takes balls to sit there and say, you know what? We'll take the loss. We'll take the loss now. We'll spread it out over a couple years, but we got to make moves now. And like I said, he tried it with Giannis. I think everybody could say they gave it a puncher's try, for health and, bad coaching or litany of different things. It just didn't work out. Didn't mesh to the magnitude that we all thought it would. However, if you're, Lillard, Milwaukee, you got to really sit there and take into account that with getting Miles Turner now, you have now backup depth behind Giannis. You're going to re-sign Gary Trent Jr. You're going to bring back Kevin Porter Jr. This makes sense for both sides. I mean, it's a shocking move. You don't really see teams do this a lot, but it really makes sense for both sides. Dame's going to be somewhere he wants to be a year from now. And it was well documented that he definitely didn't want to be away from his family. It was very hard for him being away from his kids, being back in Portland, and he's in Milwaukee, and the travel and the back and forth. That plays a lot. So I think even if he doesn't necessarily go back to Portland, if he goes somewhere where he's able to just, play at a decent level, maybe he gets to Miami. I don't know. Maybe he gets somewhere back in the Western Conference. I don't know. It's a year from now. But again, it makes sense for both sides. It's rare that things like this happen. So shout out to John Horst, general manager for the Bucks, having the balls to sit there and say, you know what, we got to make a move. We got to do something because this shit ain't working. Because again, you go into the season trying to bullshit yourself and think that you can carry that dead weight on a roster. Um, you're putting yourself in a situation where you're going to be not in the playoffs and in contention for the lottery and not getting a good pick. So, shout out to the Bucks on that. Kevon Looney looks like he has left the Golden State Warriors. Not really shocked there. We knew he was going to eventually get his money. You have Jakob Poeltl extending his contract in Toronto. No shock there. Go a little bit further as I'm getting these updates as I'm looking up for y'all. It looks like Al Horford is under consideration with the Lakers, which going into the Lakers, they've looked at DeAndre Ayton. They've looked at a litany of other centers. I'll be honest with you. The move would have been for them Miles Turner. However, you get Al Horford when you're championship ready. The Lakers are still galvanizing a roster together to be championship ready. That being said, DeAndre Ayton, Al Horford. I'd probably say Al Horford. Now, I know Al Horford's older, but I'll have the link in the description box for this live. But the articles on DeAndre Ayton and what the fuck he was doing there in Portland were just fucking atrocious. Temper tantrums because, he's getting pulled out for lack of effort, being benched in the beginning of games for the whole game for lack of energy and spirit, slamming chairs and shit. I don't know if LA, I mean, in LA, he's going to get burned. He's going to get placed. I don't know if he'll feel like he's going to be able to get away with that with a LeBron or a Luka on the roster, guys of a higher ilk and magnitude. But I don't know, coming into Portland, calling yourself dominating and, you ain't dominated shit. You rarely were even healthy. I don't know if that's really a proper move for the Lakers. I think the Lakers should definitely go in a different direction. Speaking of going in the proper direction, we're going to talk about the Rockets. The Rockets were making fucking moves. Now, I already talked about, obviously, Dorian Finney-Smith. We all know they got KD. They extended Steven Adams, extended Fred VanVleet, made another major move a couple days ago, agreeing to an extension with a young guy out of Virginia, Jabari Smith. 5 years, $122 million. It really seemed like General Manager Raphael Stone and Patrick Fertitta, the owner, really are making an emphasis on making this team a competitive team in the Western Conference, where they kept the core of the youth, but they put around the fringes veterans that can help you win now, kind of expedite or microwave, for lack of better words, the process. Got to give the Rockets a shitload of credit. They are really dominating the offseason right now. Will it lead to wins? I think so, but you know, off season is the off season. You don't win championships on paper. You win it on the court. Guys got to stay healthy. So there's a lot of things that are going to play into factor into that. But definitely got to give the Rockets again shitload of credit. And we're going a little bit further here. We got Bobby Portis, another familiar face in the familiar place stand. Bobby Portis is going to re-sign with the Bucks, 3 years, $44 million. And this is on top of the Bucks losing Brook Lopez to the Clippers in a shocking move. Didn't really expect to see that coming out anywhere. But I think Brook Lopez with Zubac is going to be perfect for what the Clippers want to do. Clippers were a sneaky team last year. If it wasn't for James Harden melting down like butter in a microwave, they would have honestly have been, a team that would advance to the second round of the playoffs. They gave the Nuggets hell. Should have won the series, honestly, but, it's another story for another day. Kind of funny, though, because, again, wasn't really expecting him to, go to Milwaukee. But Bobby Portis re-signing in Milwaukee, I think that is definitely major news. Keeping some familiarity around Giannis while still adding youth and talent. So, also details for James Harden's deal re-signing with the Clippers was 2 years, $81.5 million. So no shock there why he re-signed. Go a little bit further. And let's see here. Nickeil Alexander-Walker agreed to a sign and trade with the Hawks. His deal was 4 years, $62 million. It was funny because if you would have asked me who was the guy that was probably going to leave Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Naz Reid going into the offseason, I honestly would have thought it would have been Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Naz Reid. I thought Naz Reid would have been the guy that would have left. I thought Walker would have been the guy that the Timberwolves would have been able to retain. That is not the case. He is also Atlanta. And they're giving up a second round and cash to make this trade happen. So Atlanta definitely wanted him. So 3-and-D guy, the Hawks, low-key are kind of like adding a very sneaky and very, adequate roster that they're trying to build out down there in Atlanta. A team that could possibly compete in the middle of the Eastern Conference between 4 and 6 seeds. So we shall see, but definitely making good moves there in Atlanta. Some re-signs here. You got Davion Mitchell re-signing with the Heat, 2 years, $24 million. Nicholas Batum re-signing with the Clippers. Clippers making solid moves as well. 2 years, $11.5 million. Kevin Porter Jr. re-signing with the Bucks. So you see, like I said, familiar faces and familiar places. A lot of re-signs. Torian Prince also re-signing with the Bucks, 2 years, $7.1 million. I'm not shocked by really a lot of these moves. Obviously Damian Lillard move was shocking. Miles Turner. Michael Porter Jr. finally, and the Nets finally making moves. Probably the most shocking moves of the day. You do have Ty Jerome going to the Grizzlies for 3 years and $28 million. Kind of knew he was going to be gone. He had a very good, solid season last year. And obviously the Grizzlies need backup bench players that can definitely score and help produce. So not any fucking, mystification there or being aloof or shocked there because they needed it. I mean, the Grizzlies need to add as many good players as they possibly can back to their roster. So got to give them credit for that. Also, something for my video gamers out there, as you heard me mention PlayStation when we started this podcast, I definitely want to make sure we give a shout out to EA Sports for announcing some of the greatest fucking news in the world. EA Sports announced that NCAA March Madness will be coming back starting next year. Yes, I don't know about y'all. I remember sitting with my friends playing this game. I remember sitting with a couple of my friends, growing up, getting a little older, sitting on the weekends, drinking, smoking, eating, playing this game. It's a very exciting and addicting basketball game. I think a lot of times we actually probably played it a little bit more than live back in the day or 2K. For my people in their mid to late 30s that, know about that early days and NBA live days. Is coming back. Major announcement by EA Sports. Whole NIL thing, and now with that being settled and the federal courts kind of layering how all that's going to work out, it made more sense for the game to come back. This, like I said, exciting times. When that drops for PlayStation, you'll definitely hear the announcement. We're here for it. I'll definitely make sure I bring that to y'all attention. But yeah, ultimately, that's all the updates as for now. Obviously, I'll have some more things that I'll post and talk about and do some separate episodes and bring to light as things play out. And there was one other update too as well for the Lakers. I definitely want to make sure I mention this. Jake LaRavia going to the Lakers, leaving Sacramento. Was a good player in Sacramento, 3-and-D player, going to the Lakers to possibly help out and do that. We spoke previously about wanting to compete for a championship and compete for a playoff berth. So not shocked there in any stretch of the imagination. Very happy to see Jake LaRavia move on. Wish he wasn't with the Lakers, but he's a good player, and I'm very excited for him. But that's going to do it for this live stream, guys. This episode of Quick Takes, NBA Free Agency edition. You guys, as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Take care, and the rest of your day. And don't forget to stay cool out there.